Real people, real opinions.
Real Talk Radio. The multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.
Ireland's classic hits.
The trial of a 33-year-old man accused of murdering the schoolteacher Aisling Murphy is now in its second week at the Central Criminal Court. Joseph Puska from Lenali Grove, Mullack, County Offaly, has pleaded not guilty to murdering Miss Murphy along the banks of the Grand Canal in Tullamore, County Offaly, on January 12, 2022. Earlier this evening, Jane caught up with the reporter, Andrew Louth, who was covering the trial for us. But I will warn you, as a listener, if you are easily upset or you are sensitive to these kind of things or triggered easily, now may be the time maybe to switch off for the next 10 minutes or so, but I think it's important that we hear the details of the trial.
Good evening, Andrew. We're now into the second week of this trial. I think yesterday we heard from a total of 6 witnesses. The last witness yesterday, Anne-Marie Kelly, a primary school teacher from Tullamore, she was out walking her dog on the 12th of January, the day Aisling Murphy was killed. Can you tell us what she had to say?
That's right, Jane. She was walking along the Church Road, which kind of links the Tullamore Retail Park, where you'll find a Tesco store towards the Tullamore town itself. And Anne-Marie Kelly told the Central Criminal Court she was out for a walk with her dog, as you highlighted on that date. And she said that while she was out on this walk, that a man had been following her for quite a bit of time. And she said that she stopped near McDonald's to let him pass, but he wouldn't pass. And she continued walking, but she felt very uncomfortable, so she stopped again and said she stood in before where the path she was walking on narrowed, and he cycled past her. And when he did so, Ms. Kelly told the jury that the man was looking back over his shoulder and staring directly at her. And she felt that his stare was intimidating. And she continued on her walk, and she didn't see the man again for some time until she entered the gates at the Grand Canal and saw him standing to the left of her. And she said she made a quick decision to kind of walk down the grassy side of the canal. So just to kind of paint a picture, along the canal banks, on one side you have the grassy side that she's referring to, and on the other side there's tarmac there. Mm-hmm. So she said she'd walk down that side, the grassy side of the canal, as she didn't believe the man would be able to cycle down that side as it was too mucky. So in cross-examination then, Miss Kelly said that she remembered thinking that she just wanted to get away from the man, but she rationalised in her head that he could have been perhaps foreign or lost. And defence barrister Michael Bowman also asked her if she remembered him smoking, and she said that she didn't. And after she gave her evidence, she was then shown CCTV footage that was relayed to the jury last Friday, and she was able to identify herself in some of those clips.
The defence accepts, do they, that the man Anne-Marie Kelly is describing is Mr. Puska?
That's right, at least for one portion of it anyway. The defence barrister, Mr. Michael Bowman, told, under cross-examining, Ms. Kelly said to her, that Mr. Puska recollects this day, and he remembers cycling past her. And he said that it was Mr. Puska's recollection that he looked back at her rather than, but certainly didn't mean to stare at her. And this was something that Ms. Anne-Marie Kelly disagreed with. Okay,
so to move on to this morning's evidence, a man who drove Mr. Puska home that night gave evidence. What did he have to say?
That's right. This is bus driver Rostislav Bakuta, and he was also, he told the jury that he's also known as Peter. And he said that Mr. Puska called to his house at around 9 o'clock on the evening that Aisling Murphy died. And he said that his son initially answered the door, and that his son answered the door. He came to get Mr. Bakuta, and he went to the door and said that Mr. Puska appeared very scared and that he was wet and also looked like a different person. And Mr. Bakuta told a jury at the Central Criminal Court that Mr. Puska asked him for a lift home to his house in Muckla in County Offaly. And Mr. Bakuta said that he was eating his dinner at around this time, And Mr. Bakuja also told the jury that Mr. Pushka told him that he had been in a fight or something in town, was what he said. And when kind of pressed on that, Mr. Bakuja said Mr. Pushka didn't really want to talk too much about it. And he was asked by the prosecuting barrister, Ms. Anne-Marie Lawler, about Mr. Pushka's appearance. And he said Mr. Pushka seemed very scared, like he wasn't himself, and that his face also appeared scratched. And he also told the jury that he had asked Mr. Pushka numerous times on this car journey back to Mr. Pushka's home what had happened, and that he told him he had been in this fight. And he also asked why he hadn't contacted Gardaí, and there was no answer to that as well. So as Mr. Bakusa dropped Mr. Pushka to his house, he told the jury that Josef Pushka asked him to slow down in case there was someone outside of the house. And he asked Mr. Pushka why he would be worried if he didn't do anything wrong. And in response to that, Josef Pushka is claimed to have told him to leave it. Now, he was also cross-examined by the defence barrister Michael Bowman, and Mr. Bakusa has accepted that he initially did not tell the truth in his initial statement to Gardaí on the 21st of January. And he said that he hadn't seen any of the Pushka brothers after January 11th. And he also made a later statement then saying that Josef Pushka called to his house at 9 o'clock on the 12th of January, as we spoke earlier. And Mr. Bakusa told Mr. Bowman he was afraid for his family and accepting that the atmosphere was ugly around Tullamore at the time.
Okay. CCTV footage presented to the jury on Friday showed Mr. Pushka at an apartment block where his parents lived in the early hours of January the 13th. And the next morning, emergency services were called to the apartment complex. What happened here?
Yeah, so that's right. So just to kind of go back to what we heard last Friday, and that was the CCTV footage. It showed Mr. Pushka and his parents outside that apartment complex. This was around just before 1 o'clock on the morning of January 13th. And a few hours later then, emergency services were called to an apartment. And we heard evidence from one of the Gardaí who attended that apartment. And this was Mr. Pushka's parents' apartment in Crumlin, after they were told that there had been a stabbing. So one of those Gardaí who gave evidence today was Keith Brennan. He spoke to Mr. Pushka's cousin, who was at the apartment and who was helping to translate. And Garda Brennan said that she told him that Josef Pushka was from the Tullamore area. And there was also evidence from Garda Brennan that Mr. Pushka appeared to be in pain and there were clear markings on his face. And the reason why they were called to the apartment was that they heard reports that somebody had been involved in an incident, and through Mr. Pushka's cousin, he told Gardaí that he had been stabbed in a fight in Blanchardstown the previous day. Now, Gardaí in Blanchardstown were investigating a double stabbing. It so happens on that occurred on that date.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Finally, earlier today we heard evidence about how Gardaí tried to establish Aisling Murphy's last known movements.
Yeah, so this was Detective Garda Kieran Byrne who told the court how Gardaí had analysed data from Miss Murphy's Fitbit watch, and it showed consistent data from about 9 minutes before 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the day she was killed until just after 3:20. And Detective Garda Byrne told the jury that he had bought a device of the same make and model, and he walked along the same route along the Grand Canal in Tullamore. The data showed that Miss Murphy started her walk along the Grand Canal at around 51 minutes past 2 that afternoon, according to the watch. And the first graph that was drawn up by Detective Garda Byrne and shown to the jury shows that her pace and speed were consistent until around 21 minutes past 3. And it was around 23 minutes past 3 that Garda Byrne said the pace started to decrease until it stops at around 4 minutes past 4. And he said that this was the only graph that didn't stop at 31 minutes past 3, explaining that this was it was because of the way that Fitbits record speed and time, according to him. And there was also another graph that tracks Miss Murphy's heart rate that the jury were shown as well. And it is raised consistently until about 21 minutes past 3. And it was said that this is consistent with somebody exercising. And at that time, it starts to decrease, and quite rapidly, until about 27 minutes past 3. And there were slight ups and downs on the graph that we could see between 15:27 to 15:31. But it was at that last time I just said there. So that's 15:31. So just after 3:30 in the afternoon, that the Fitbit was no longer picking up a heart rate. And in cross-examination as well, Michael Bowman, he put it to Detective Garda Kieran Byrne about the accuracy of the graphs and suggested to him that the makers of the watch had said the readings from Fitbit smartwatches were not intended to provide scientific and medical data. Okay,
so this doesn't have any impact then on the official time of death?
It doesn't specify a time of death. No, it doesn't. But as I said earlier, there are a lot of graphs that kind of show that certain activities stop at 31 minutes past 3, including the heart rate.
Okay. So I think the judge said that we're on track for the trial to be over within 4 weeks.
Yes, that was something that Mr. Justice Tony Hunt said last Friday, that he told the jury that he was looking at a maximum extent of the trial being for the 10th of November. That's a Friday. So, and if you remember, we said before that Mr. Justice Tony Hunt said it should last around 4 weeks. This was during the jury selection process. He also told them at the time that it would be prudent for them to allow for 5 weeks. But yes, last Friday, Mr. Justice Tony Hunt said that the maximum extent of the trial should be towards the date of Friday, November 10th.
Okay, thank you, Andrew, and we'll talk to you again on Thursday.
Thanks, Jane.
Real people, real opinions.
Real Talk Radio, the multi-award winning Niall Boylan Show.